Here's a question. What's the largest empire by population in human history? Rome, the British Empire? Nope, the Qing Dynasty of China. At its peak in the 1800s, the Qing ruled over 432 million people. That was about 36% of the entire world's population at the time. More than 1 in 3 humans alive were under Qing rule. They controlled modern-day China, Mongolia, Tibet, Taiwan, and parts of Central Asia, about 5.6 million square miles. And they did this for 268 years, from 1644 to 1912, making them one of the longest-lasting empires we've covered. The Qing created incredible art, expanded China to its largest territorial extent, and presided over an economic and cultural golden age. But they also struggled to modernize, faced devastating rebellions, and ultimately collapsed in revolution, ending over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China. So how do you govern a quarter of humanity? And what happens when the world changes faster than you can adapt? I'm Jack, this is Blueprints of Power, and today we're exploring the dynasty that defined modern China. For better and worse, let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Blueprints of Power. I'm Jack.
I'm Lily.
And I'm Charlie.
Today, we're covering the Qing Dynasty, and I think this might be one of the most important episodes we've done for understanding the modern world.
Why is that?
Because the Qing Dynasty shaped modern China in profound ways. The borders of modern China largely come from Qing expansion. The ethnic tensions between Han Chinese and minority groups have roots in Qing policies, and China's complicated relationship with the West started during the Qing period.
Plus, the Qing ruled over more people than any empire in history. At their peak, they had 432 million subjects, more than a third of all humans alive.
That's insane. How do you even govern that many people?
Very carefully, and the Qing were actually not ethnically Chinese. They were Manchus, a people from Manchuria in northeastern China. So they're foreigners ruling over a Han Chinese majority.
Wait, so they're like the Mongols ruling China?
Similar. The Mongols established the Yuan dynasty in the 1200s, and the Manchus established the Qing dynasty in the 1600s. Both are conquest dynasties, but the Qing learn from the Mongols' mistakes and do it differently.
So they're smarter about it?
Much smarter. They blend Manchu and Chinese culture, they preserve Chinese traditions while maintaining Manchu identity, and they create a system that works for 268 years.
And during that time, they preside over incredible prosperity, create beautiful art and architecture, and expand China's borders. But they also face enormous challenges: Western imperialism, internal rebellions, and the struggle to modernize.
And ultimately, they collapse in 1912 in the Xinhai Revolution, ending over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China. It's a huge turning point in world history.
So we're covering 268 years today.
We're hitting the highlights: the rise, the golden age, the challenges, and the fall. This is going to be fascinating.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Where do the Manchus come from? Okay, so the Manchus are originally a semi-nomadic people from Manchuria, the region northeast of China, beyond the Great Wall. In the early 1600s, they're organized into tribes and clans, similar to the Mongols.
So they're outside China, looking in?
Exactly. And at this time, China is ruled by the Ming Dynasty, which has been in power since 1368. But by the early 1600s, the Ming Dynasty is declining. Corrupt officials, heavy taxes, natural disasters, famines. People are suffering and unhappy.
So China's weakening.
Significantly. And in 1616, a Manchu leader named Nurhaci unifies the Manchu tribes and establishes the later Jin state. He's organizing the Manchus into a military and administrative system called the Eight Banners.
What are the 8 banners?
They're military administrative units. All Manchu families are assigned to one of 8 banners, identified by colored flags. Each banner has its own troops, lands, and leadership. It's how the Manchus organize their society and army.
So it's like a clan system, but military focused.
Exactly, and it's very effective. The banners create loyalty, organization, and military strength, and Nurhaci starts conquering territory along China's borders.
So he's attacking the Ming Dynasty.
He is. And after Nurhaci dies in 1626, his son Hong Taiji continues the expansion. In 1636, Hong Taiji does something significant. He renames the dynasty the Qing Dynasty, meaning clear or pure. And he starts calling the Manchus the rulers not just of Manchuria, but of all China.
So he's claiming the mandate of heaven?
Exactly. In Chinese political philosophy, emperors rule by the mandate of heaven, divine approval. If a dynasty becomes corrupt or loses control, heaven withdraws the mandate, and a new dynasty can take over. Hong Taiji is saying, the Ming have lost the mandate, and we Manchus have it now.
That's a bold claim.
Very bold. But then in 1644, something happens that changes everything. A massive peasant rebellion led by Li Zicheng captures Beijing, the Ming capital. The last Ming emperor hangs himself. The Ming dynasty is over.
So rebels overthrow the Ming?
They do. But here's the twist. A Ming general named Wu Sangui is supposed to be defending against the Manchus. But when rebels take Beijing, Wu Sangui makes a deal with the Manchus. Help me defeat the rebels, and I'll help you take China.
So he switches sides?
He does. And the Manchus march through the gates Wu Sangui opens, defeat the rebels, and take Beijing in June 1644. The Qing dynasty officially begins.
So they basically walk into power?
With help from a Chinese general, yes. But now comes the hard part. They control the capital, but most of China doesn't accept them. They're foreign conquerors, and many Chinese resist.
So they have to fight for control.
They do. It takes about 40 years of warfare to fully conquer China. Loyalists to the Ming dynasty, called the Southern Ming, resist in the south, but gradually, through military strength, strategic alliances, and smart policies, the Qing consolidate control.
What smart policies?
The Qing are pragmatic. They keep the Chinese bureaucracy largely intact. They let Chinese officials continue serving in government. They respect Confucian traditions and Chinese culture. They're not trying to force Manchu ways on everyone.
So they're being strategic, like the Persians?
Very similar. They understand that if you want to rule a massive population, you need to respect their culture. But they also maintain Manchu identity and power in key ways.
Like what?
They require all Chinese men to wear the Manchu hairstyle, shaving the front of the head and wearing a long braid in the back called a queue. This is controversial and many resist, but the Qing enforce it as a symbol of submission.
So everyone has to look Manchu?
Just the hairstyle. It's symbolic, showing who's in charge. And key government and military positions are split between Manchus and Chinese. Every important post has a Manchu and a Chinese official working together.
So they're sharing power but keeping control?
Exactly, and it works. By the early 1700s, the Qing dynasty is firmly established, and China enters what's called the High Qing era, a golden age of prosperity, expansion, and culture.
All right, quick break. If you're loving this dive into the Qing dynasty, and honestly, I had no idea they ruled over a third of humanity, hit that follow button, subscribe to Blueprints of Power on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. We're covering the empires that shaped the world, and we've got incredible episodes coming. The Mali Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, the Mughal Empire. So many great stories ahead. Share this with someone who'd appreciate it. Send it to a friend, a teacher, a parent. If you know someone interested in China, history, or just how the world works, this is the show for them. And please leave us a review. It genuinely helps us reach more listeners, and we read every single one. Tell us what you're learning, what you think, what empires you want us to cover. All right, back to the Qing dynasty, because we're about to get into their golden age and how they governed a quarter of humanity. Let's go.
Okay, so by the early 1700s, the Qing Dynasty is established. How do they run this massive empire?
The Qing have one of the most sophisticated administrative systems in history. Let me break down their recipe for power.
Ready for this recipe?
Ingredient number 1, the bureaucracy and the examination system. China has a civil service exam system that goes back centuries. To become a government official, you have to pass incredibly difficult exams on Confucian classics, history, poetry, and philosophy.
So it's merit-based?
In theory, yes, anyone can take the exams, regardless of birth. In practice, wealthier families have advantages because they can afford tutors and years of study, but it does allow talent to rise.
What's on these exams?
You have to memorize Confucian texts, write essays analyzing classical literature, compose poetry in specific styles. It takes years of preparation, and the pass rate is incredibly low, sometimes less than 1%.
So it's super competitive.
Extremely competitive. But if you pass, you become part of the scholar official class, the gentry. You get government positions, respect, and influence. The Qing continue this system because it creates a competent bureaucracy.
So they're using Chinese systems to govern China.
Exactly. And ingredient 2, the emperor's role. The Qing emperor is absolute ruler, but he's not doing everything alone. He has the Grand Council, a small group of top advisors, and he has the 6 boards that handle different aspects of government: personnel, revenue, rights, war, punishment, and public works.
So it's organized like a government with departments.
Yes. And the Qing have 3 of the most capable emperors in Chinese history ruling consecutively. The Kangxi Emperor, 1661 to 1722, the Yongjing Emperor, 1722 to 1735, and the Qianlong Emperor, 1735 to 1796. Together, they rule for 135 years.
Wait, 3 great emperors in a row.
3 in a row. That's incredibly lucky and rare. And these emperors are hardworking, intelligent, and committed to good governance.
What do they accomplish?
So much. The Kangxi Emperor crushes the last major rebellions, expands Qing territory, and promotes learning. He's up at 5 a.m. every day reading reports. He personally leads military campaigns. He studies mathematics and science with Jesuit missionaries from Europe.
So he's curious about Western knowledge.
Very curious. The Qing are actually quite open to learning from the West in the early period. Jesuits serve as advisors, introduce Western astronomy and cartography, and even help design gardens and buildings.
So there's cultural exchange?
Yes. And ingredient 3, territorial expansion. Under these 3 emperors, the Qing expand China to its largest extent. They conquer Taiwan in 1683. They subdue Mongolia. They take control of Tibet. They conquer the Dzungar Khanate in Central Asia, adding Xinjiang to China.
So China's getting huge.
At its peak, the Qing Empire is about 5.6 million square miles. Larger than the United States and Western Europe combined, and it's incredibly diverse. Han Chinese, Manchus, Mongols, Tibetans, Uyghurs, dozens of ethnic groups.
How do they govern such diversity?
Ingredient 4, a multi-ethnic approach. The Qing present themselves differently to different peoples. To Han Chinese, they're legitimate Chinese emperors upholding Confucian values. To Mongols, they're successors to the Mongol Khans. To Tibetans, they're patrons of Tibetan Buddhism. The Qianlong Emperor even learns multiple languages.
So they're code switching?
Basically, they adapt their image to each culture while maintaining overall control. And ingredient 5, economic prosperity. During the High Qing era, the population explodes, from about 150 million in 1700 to over 300 million by 1800.
Double in a century? Why?
Peace, stability, and new crops from the Americas. Corn, sweet potatoes, peanuts that can grow in poor soil, allowing more land to be farmed, food production increases, and the population grows.
So they're well fed.
Generally, yes, and trade is booming. China exports tea, silk, and porcelain to Europe. Europeans are obsessed with Chinese goods, but China doesn't want much from Europe. They're basically self-sufficient.
So trade is one way?
Mostly. Silver flows into China as payment for goods, making China wealthy. And ingredient 6, arts and culture. The High Qing era is a cultural golden age. The emperors are patrons of art, literature, and architecture.
What kind of art?
Painting, calligraphy, poetry, porcelain, jade carving, incredibly refined arts. The Qianlong Emperor is a prolific poet and art collector. He commissions the complete library in 4 sections, a massive encyclopedia of Chinese knowledge with over 3,400 books.
So he's preserving knowledge.
And promoting it. They build the Summer Palace and expand the Forbidden City. Chinese culture flourishes. And ingredient 7, the tributary system. China doesn't see itself as one nation among equals. They see themselves as the Middle Kingdom, the center of civilization, and surrounding countries are tributaries who pay respect to the emperor.
So everyone else is beneath China?
In the Chinese worldview, yes. Countries like Korea, Vietnam, and others send tribute missions to Beijing, acknowledge Chinese superiority, and in return, they get trade privileges and protection.
So it's a hierarchical world order.
Exactly, and this worldview works fine as long as China is the most powerful civilization in the region. But when the West shows up with different ideas about international relations...
Clash of worldviews.
What happens?
Before we get into the challenges and decline of the Qing Dynasty, I want to say that this is a complicated period where 2 very different worldviews collide: the traditional Chinese tributary system and the Western nation-state system. Understanding this helps us understand modern China's relationship with the world. If you're enjoying Blueprints of Power, please share it with someone. This show is about understanding how power works and how history shapes the present. The more people thinking critically about these topics, the better. Next week, we're covering the Mali Empire, the West African empire that controlled the gold trade and was so wealthy that its emperor Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca literally caused inflation. It's going to be amazing. And please leave us a review if you haven't already. It helps us grow, and we love hearing from you. All right, time to talk about how the Qing Dynasty faced its greatest challenges and ultimately fell. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the Qing Dynasty is at its peak in the late 1700s. What causes the decline?
The decline is gradual but devastating. First major problem, population pressure. Remember how the population doubled to 300 million by 1800? By 1850, it's over 430 million.
That's a lot of people.
Too many people. Agricultural production can't keep up. Land becomes scarce, poverty increases, and social tensions rise.
So they're running out of resources?
They're stretched thin. And second problem, internal corruption and decay. As the Qing Dynasty ages, the bureaucracy becomes more corrupt. Officials take bribes, embezzle funds, and neglect their duties. The emperors after Qianlong are less capable.
So leadership weakens.
Significantly. And third problem, the Opium Wars with Britain. This is where things get really bad. British merchants are importing opium from India into China, getting millions of Chinese people addicted.
Why opium?
Because Britain wants Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain, but China doesn't want British goods. So Britain starts selling opium, which is illegal in China, to create demand and balance trade.
That's messed up.
It's terrible. By the 1830s, millions of Chinese are addicted, and silver is flowing out of China to pay for opium. The Qing government tries to stop it. In 1839, a Chinese official confiscates and destroys tons of British opium.
Good for them.
But Britain declares war, the First Opium War from 1839 to 1842, and China loses badly. British warships and modern weapons overwhelm Chinese forces.
So Britain attacks China for destroying illegal drugs?
Essentially, yes. And in 1842, China is forced to sign the Treaty of Nanking, the first of the unequal treaties. China has to pay Britain, cede Hong Kong to Britain, and open 5 ports to British trade.
So China loses territory and sovereignty?
Yes, and it gets worse. In the Second Opium War from 1856 to 1860, Britain and France defeat China again. This time, Western troops burn the Summer Palace, one of the most beautiful palaces in the world. More ports are opened, and China loses more control.
So the West is humiliating China.
Completely, and this trauma shapes modern China's worldview. The century of humiliation, from the Opium Wars to the end of World War II, is still taught in Chinese schools today.
So it's still affecting China now.
Very much so. And fourth problem, massive internal rebellions. The biggest is the Taiping Rebellion from 1850 to 1864. A man named Hong Xiuquan claims to be the brother of Jesus Christ and leads a rebellion to create a heavenly kingdom.
Wait, brother of Jesus?
He has visions after studying Christian missionaries' materials, and he attracts millions of followers, peasants angry about poverty, corruption, and Manchu rule. The Taiping Rebellion becomes one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Estimates range from 20 to 30 million deaths.
That's more than World War I.
It's catastrophic. The Qing eventually defeat the Taiping with help from Western mercenaries and Chinese armies, but China is devastated.
So China's falling apart internally and being attacked externally.
Exactly. And fifth problem, failure to modernize. In the late 1800s, some Chinese officials realized China needs to modernize, build railways, factories, modern armies. They start the self-strengthening movement to adopt Western technology while keeping Chinese values.
Does it work?
Not enough. Conservative forces resist change. The Empress Dowager Cixi, who essentially rules from 1861 to 1908, sometimes supports reforms and sometimes blocks them. China modernizes too slowly.
What happens?
In 1894 to 95, China fights Japan in the First Sino-Japanese War and loses humiliatingly. Japan, a much smaller country that had modernized rapidly, defeats China easily. This shows how far behind China has fallen.
That must have been shocking.
It's devastating to Chinese pride. And by the early 1900s, many Chinese intellectuals believe the Qing Dynasty and the entire imperial system are the problem revolutionary movements grow, led by people like Sun Yat-sen who want to overthrow the dynasty and create a republic.
So people want democracy?
They want modernization, nationalism, and an end to foreign humiliation. In 1908, the Empress Dowager Cixi dies, and the new emperor is a child. Puyi, only 2 years old.
A child emperor?
Yes, and in 1911, the Xinhai Revolution erupts. Military units and provinces declare independence from the Qing. On February 12, 1912, the 6-year-old Emperor Puyi abdicates. The Qing dynasty is over.
So it ends with a child giving up the throne?
It does, and with that, over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China ends. The Republic of China is established under Sun Yat-sen. Though China enters decades of instability, warlordism, and civil war before the Communist Party takes power in 1949.
So the fall of the Qing reshapes all of China.
Completely reshapes it. Modern China, both the People's Republic and Taiwan, are direct results of the Qing dynasty's fall.
All right, we've covered 268 years of the Qing dynasty, the rise, the golden age, and the fall. Time for lessons. What can we learn from the dynasty that ruled a quarter of humanity? Charlie, you're first.
Okay, here's mine. Success breeds complacency, and complacency leads to decline. The Qing were incredibly successful for their first 150 years, so successful that they didn't think they needed to change. When the West showed up with new technologies and ideas, the Qing were slow to adapt because they believed they were already the center of civilization. The lesson? Never assume your current success means you'll succeed in the future. The world changes, and you have to change with it, or you'll get left behind.
Stay humble, keep evolving.
Always.
That's perfect. Mine's about the danger of external humiliation creating internal instability. The Opium Wars and unequal treaties didn't just cost China territory and money, they damaged Chinese pride and legitimacy of the Qing government. That humiliation fueled rebellions and revolutionary movements. The lesson? How others treat you affects your internal stability. Respect and dignity matter in international relations. When people or nations feel humiliated, resentment builds and eventually explodes.
Dignity is strategic, not just moral.
Exactly.
Both excellent. Mine's about the challenge of governing diversity. The Qing ruled dozens of ethnic groups across a massive territory, and they did it by adapting their approach to each culture. But when the dynasty weakened, those ethnic tensions became part of the instability. The lesson? Diversity can be strength, but it requires constant management, respect, and adaptation. When central authority weakens, unresolved tensions surface. So if you're governing diversity, whether it's in empires, companies, or communities, you can't take unity for granted. You have to actively maintain it.
Unity requires work.
Constant work.
That's really important.
The Qing Dynasty is fascinating. I had no idea they ruled over so many people.
432 million at their peak, more than any empire in history.
And their fall reshaped the entire modern world. China today is still grappling with questions from that period. How to modernize while maintaining identity, how to interact with the West, how to govern diversity.
History still matters today.
Always. All right, next week we're covering the Mali Empire, the West African empire that controlled the gold trade and was so wealthy that when Emperor Mansa Musa went on pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold that it caused inflation across the Mediterranean. It's one of the most incredible stories we've covered.
Mansa Musa is possibly the richest person in human history. This episode's going to be amazing.
I'm so ready for that.
Same. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for hanging with us on Blueprints of Power.
I'm Lily.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Jack, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.